Right, here we are where we left off in part 1, and if you haven't seen that, I recommend doing so to bring you up to speed on where we are. And where we are is setting off on the journey of making our animation look just like the original. And it starts by recalling that the state that the links are in right now is the state that the black link starts in and the white link ends in. And we need to carefully time our animations to make that work. So let's start setting up our Animatingternaries, and we'll start with the white one. If we're animating, as in if we're in the finished position, this is where we want to be. Otherwise, we'll just start at 0 for now. The to trim also is the positive condition. We end up there and we start again. Let's put 0 in there. So if I resume that and then play, what happens? Okay, that's not looking too bad. The problem here is that we don't want to see anything until halfway through the animation. If I run that again, you can see it immediately starts. And that's a problem because the black link is supposed to be animating at that point. And it's not until the black link disappears that we're supposed to see the white one. Let's keep that in mind while we do the black one. So we know in order to disappear, the from trim has to be 1. Okay, because if it's going from 1, you're not going to see anything. So animating 1 or from trim. But we can actually leave the to trim alone because we know it disappears when the from trim goes to 1. And we don't want that to trim moving at all. It's in the perfect place. So how are we going to sync these animations up? Well, we're going to use a weird but awesome trick. And that is taking advantage of the fact that the trim modifier can take any values to animate between. What this means is that even though we will only see something when we have a positive range somewhere between 0 and 1, it will actually animate between any two values for the from and to values of the trim. So by taking advantage of that, we can play around with where these values start and finish over the course of the entire animation, making sure that the window in time in which they are visible is where we want it. So in order to get this to work, all we need to do is offset the white link so it's not visible until the black link disappears, and offset the black link so it becomes invisible before the white link appears. So we can just play around with these values. Instead of 0, I can make the starting point where it's going minus a value. So let's say that it starts at from trim minus 2. And the to trim is to trim minus 2. And that where the black link is animating to is actually the from trim plus 1. So it goes past 1 before it finishes, like this. All right, let's see what that looks like. So as you can see, it's almost working, but the white link seems to start just before the black link finishes. So let's put a little bit extra in the 2 here, 0.5. And then we see the black one finish and the white one goes. So obviously you can play around with these values to make sure that they start and end exactly where you want over the course of the animation, but I'm happy with this. And now I'm going to change the animation to be faster and more exciting using an animation very similar to the one that we developed in the custom timing curves episode. But ultimately, the animation I want to use looks like this. I'm going to give it a timing curve with the values 0.65, 0, 0.35, 1, and a duration of 1. Much more exciting animation, and we've got them behaving the way that we want them to behave. Now, of course, we need to get rid of this offset and put them in the position they need to be for the final animation. So I'm going to remove these offsets here and explicitly set some offsets here. I know that I'm going to want to rotate this thing by 45 degrees anti-clockwise. Rotate minus 45 degrees. I'm going to want to offset it by minus 7 and minus 16 in the Y. So remember that when you call rotate and offset, before you call stroke, you're acting on the shape. So that returns another shape. It's going to be a rotated shape. It's going to be an offset shape. That's why you can put these modifiers directly on shape and then trim and stroke as you would normally. So now that's in the correct position. And as luck would have it, because we have offset this thing around the center of our icon, I can now just rotate that 180 degrees to give us both of the links. So I'm going to set a white link constant there and a black link constant there. I'll put a white link there and another one rotated 180 degrees. I'm going to do the same for the black link, rotated 180 degrees. And that should be enough to get the animation that we're interested in. So there it is. Let's have a look again. Okay, that's looking pretty good to me. And now we've just got some finishing touches to do. I'm going to put a tiny bit of embossing on these links. So that means putting a group around the white ones and putting a shadow color of black with a radius of 0.2 and a Y offset of 0.4. Right, we'll do the same for the black link. And this is going to be white. All right, that just gives a little bit of embossing like the original. Now we just have to put on the text. And to do that, we just go up here and we put an H stack with a label, tap to Shazam, with an SF symbol of mic filled. And we're going to make that a title font with white and bold properties. We're going to give it a Y offset of -175. And then we need to animate the opacity. So we'll say, showing title, false. And then we say, opacity, if not, showing title is 0. And then in on appear, after 0.5 seconds, we're going to ease in out with a duration of 2, at which point we say showing title is true. So we resume that. Okay, and it fades in, and we're going to make it breathe. Breathing, false. And we're going to do this after 1 second with animation, ease in, out with the duration of 2. We're going to repeat forever with auto reverse set to true. Breathing is equal to true. And then we just scale the circle and links. Scale if breathing 1.05. And there is one last thing we actually need to do. I've got to make sure that it scales in from nothing. We'll put in one called scaled, false. And then we'll put that down here. Scale if not scaled is 0. We set that to immediately start with an ease in out. Scaled is true, and then we'll delay this by 0.2 seconds. Right, let's resume and see what we've got. And there we are, all done. Now I think animating might be the wrong name here. I think animated might be a better choice because we're not doing a repeating animation. We're saying, have we animated it or not? So I'm going to actually change that from animating to animated. Yeah, I think that's better. Anyway, I hope that's given you some ideas as to how you can use the trim modifier in creative ways to give you some interesting animations. So there you go, 2 things. We can overcome the offset limitation by defining our own shape, and we can exploit the fact that we can animate between any 2 values to time up our animations nicely. If you want to see more of this kind of thing, then consider subscribing, because if you subscribe, it's less likely that you're going to miss the next episode. And I know that the next episode is going to be just brilliant and you do not want to miss it. Believe me, probably. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them below. But in the meantime, thanks for joining me. See you next time.